So let me get this straight. Mark Carney deleted all of Canada's tariffs, and 3 days later, he dropped a liberal-costed platform which indicated $20 billion from those same tariffs. The best part? They left secret codes in the system to make the tariffs disappear. And guess what? I got proof. On April 16th, the federal government quietly removed all the counter tariffs to zero. There was no press release, there was no headlines, there was no announcements. They buried this. Then, 3 days later, Mark Carney provided a polished liberal cost platform. And guess what was in this cost platform? $20 billion in tariff revenue. He literally started counting money from tariffs he had just erased. This is not a budgeting error. This is a calculated illusion. They kept the tariffs on paper, but secretly they provided a code for them to override the tariffs and make them gone. This way, the media could continue to report on the tariffs that they're still in place.
We will fight Trump's counter tariffs. In fact, we are already. We're fighting them with our own counter tariffs that cause maximum damage in the United States with minimum impact here in Canada.
Because on paper, they're still in place, but these magical codes make everything go to zero. While corporations and importers laugh their way all the way to the bank, meanwhile, you still pay for the tariffs when you go to the stores. And somehow, this man thinks he's leading our economy to recovery. And it gets better. While corporate importers use a code to get tariff-free everything, I got slapped with a 25% tariff while ordering vitamins. This is what you call fairness in Carney's Canada. I guess it's 25% just to be healthy in this country. And this is the Canada that we live in, where politicians quietly delete tariffs for billions of dollars in imports, and while I get taxed for trying to take care of myself and my body. And maybe, and just maybe, it's Mark Carney that doesn't want to table a real budget, because once he does that, those numbers are in writing. Because once you put it in writing, you can't hide from your BS anymore. And it's not just vitamins they're putting tariffs on. There's 1,256 entries of retaliatory tariffs on food. And while we're getting taxed on our broccoli and vitamins, the US just sounded the alarm on Canada as being the real danger. And this is not what the media wants you to hear. While you were distracted with the news about the US and the southern border, the FBI just dropped a bombshell about Canada. The southern border is secure. The real threat is coming from the north. I'm gonna have to show you this news clip because you won't even be able to believe your eyes. Let's go.
In the first 2-3 months that we've been in the seat under Donald Trump's administration, he has sealed the border. He has stopped border crossings. So where's all the fentanyl coming from still? Where's the trafficking coming from still? Where are all the narco traffickers going to keep bringing this stuff into the country? The northern border. Our adversaries have partnered up with the CCP and others, Russia, Iran, on a variety of different criminal enterprises, and they're going and they're sailing around to Vancouver and coming in by air. And the sheer tyranny of distance of the northern border and the lack of cooperation from federal authorities in prior administrations to actually firm up that northern border is what's causing a continuation of violent crime. Now, we're focused on it, and we're calling our state and local law enforcement partners up there. But you know who has to get to step in is Canada, because they're making it up there and shipping it down here. And I don't care about getting into this debate about making someone the 51st state or not, but they are our partner in the north. And say what you want about Mexico, but they helped us seal the southern border. The facts speak for themselves. The border that's open, I'll give you a statistic that I gave to Congress that nobody was paying attention to. Over 300 known or suspected terrorists crossed into this country last year illegally. Known or suspected terrorists, not illegals. not just illegals, known or suspected terrorists. 85% of them came in through the northern border. Wow. This year, 100.
And there should be no surprise by anybody in Canada with these super labs with 92 million doses that could potentially do something. Canada's not consuming all that stuff. It's going to other markets. And our own government knows all about this, but they're not going to admit it because that means they have to take responsibility for it, and they won't do that.
Recently, the Canadian Department of Foreign Affairs has been quoted as saying that Canada is now a net exporter of fentanyl. I understand there's been some talk today about how much goes to the States, how much goes here, but overall, Commissioner, would you agree with the statement from the Department of Foreign Affairs that Canada right now is a net exporter of fentanyl?
So Canada is producing quantities such that it would be impossible for Canadian consumers to consume. There is an export. We are considered exporting some fentanyl. As I mentioned earlier, as was mentioned earlier, minute trace goes to the United States based on the intelligence that we have. But it is being exported at a greater cost than what the cartel is actually making it right now.
Thank you. And recently there was 11 kilograms of fentanyl originating from Canada was recently seized at the Australian border. That's, I assume, I'm not obviously an expert in the size of that, but I assume 11 kilograms is a lot of fentanyl. Is that a lot? Is that
It is a lot, and during my Five Eyes meetings, I do chat with my counterpart from Australia to see how we can work together. Not that we don't work together, but work a stronger partnership in addressing fentanyl.
Because we also have our failed immigration policy, zero vetting, and open border ideology. And that turned Canada into a liability on this continent. So while our borders are crumbling and security is collapsing, Ottawa just appointed a radical activist to oversee what you're allowed to say about it. They could have called it what it is, Minister of Online Censorship. Instead, they gave a warm, fuzzy name, Minister of Identity and Culture. And guess who is in charge of it? Stephen Guilbeault. Same guy who climbed the CN Tower and was arrested, climbed onto somebody's house, arrested a second time. That guy. Now he's going to be working on legislation. And guess what? They're going to put him in control over what you post, share, and see online. And you're not going to believe this. Under Stephen Guilbeault's new mandate, the government will oversee what qualifies as Canadian content. And guess who gets to decide what Canadian content is, what platforms must promote, and what gets shadow banned or removed entirely. And let's be real, this isn't about protecting culture at all. It's about controlling the narrative. Ahead of an election, during an economic collapse, while public trust is disintegrating, this isn't Canadian identity. It's a regime maintenance. And he's in charge of all of it. And while they're trying to identify what it means to be Canadian, the truth is, actual Canadians are disappearing. I've got a chart to prove it, and it's brutal. They keep talking about Canadian identity, but if we're being honest, there's not going to be a Canadian identity left. Just take a look at this chart from the Toronto Star. Immigration is exploding. Birth rates are collapsing. We're not replacing ourselves. And this isn't some type of conspiracy. This is government policy. Ottawa is importing over millions of people every year. Meanwhile, Canadian families can't afford kids, homes, or groceries. So what happens next? The country doesn't grow. It gets replaced. The economy breaks, the trust completely collapses, and the government smiles because you were never part of the long-term plan anyway. You were just here to pay for it. While the population replacement plays out in plain sight, Mark Carney has a housing plan to help us all enter the market. Let's break down what he really actually means by that.
Prefabricated and modular housing are the future. They can drive down time to completion by up to 50%. They can reduce costs by up to 20%, emissions by over 20% compared to traditional construction methods. And Canada should be the world leader in this new industry. And as you can see here, we're already well positioned to do so. And that's why my government will provide $25 billion, I'll repeat, $25 billion in financing to scale the industry up massively, to create high-paying jobs, high-skilled jobs up and down the supply chain in prefabricated and modular housing factories like this one, in innovative housing research, such as at the UBC Smart Structures, which I visited just in February, and in our world-class forestry industry. Our plan will revitalize our construction sector, where in recent years, labor productivity has been stagnant and costs have risen over 50%. Prefabricated and modular housing will catalyze a productivity boom, while creating tens of thousands of not just jobs, but tens of thousands of new high-paying careers in the skilled trades.
Mark Carney says he has a housing plan. He says he's going to help Canadians finally enter the market. But like everything else with this government, it's a lie wrapped up in compassion. See, Mark Carney needs to play it safe because he has a minority government. He can't say anything bold like, I'm going to fix this, I'm going to fix that. Not only that, is he doesn't want to fix the housing crisis because in reality, he wants all these prices to continue to go up. And we all know he has investments in Brookfield for all his manufactured homes that he's going to release to all of these Canadian citizens. And we all know the Canadian dream is our government and banks selling Canadians debt, lifelong debt. And he says that you're going to get 50 grand to buy your first home, but when the first home is $1 million, what Canadian in this country makes enough money to qualify for that? Not many. While the housing scam continues to keep you broke, Canada's already sliding into a recession. No one's going to admit how deep this hole really goes, but let me show you some of the data. The Bank of Canada continues to tell us it's a warning. Let's stop pretending that it's still a warning. Canada is heading into a recession. No, we're actually in it. GDP is flatlining. Consumer spending is collapsing. Business investment has dried up. And household debt is now higher than anywhere else in the G7. The only thing that's keeping it all together is denial. Denial from Ottawa, denial from the mainstream media, and denial from people that think that the government is spending its way into a growth strategy. They're gaslighting the public while the economy contracts in real time. Unemployment is rising. Bankruptcies are spiking. Foreclosures are ticking up. But instead of warning Canadians, they're running a PR campaign. No budget, none. They don't even have one. There's no plan. Just platitudes and identity policies and censorship. Oh yes, Stephen Guilbeault will do that. This isn't bad leadership. This is controlled demolition. And when the crash hits, they'll blame everybody but themselves. We know how the Liberals roll. But you'll remember where you heard it first. I'll see you on the next report.